Luxemburgers, because Luxemburgers, I mean, look, I'm starving right now. I kind of like the sound of that. The Luxemburgers. But anyway, I mean, seriously, her playing that brand of baseball, I would imagine that she'll find herself somewhere in a big league system if she is successful with this season. I really believe she'll be good enough to do it. And let's face it, if you're raking over there hitting 611, something tells me that the brand of pitching that she's facing is just as good as what they have in the minor league system here. And arguably in the big league, depending on the team that you're talking about. I mean, if it's the Kansas City Royals by chance, she's probably facing tougher pitching over there than she is against the Royals.
Ain't that the truth? But hey, man, maybe she does good and she gets called to a spring training camp next, February. How awesome would that be?
Well, I think that would be fantastic. And you know what else is also something fun to watch is the Daily Scoreboard. Now, this isn't a scoreboard show, but I know you're a big Cubs fan, and I'm a big anti-Cub fan. So I'm rooting for Jake Arrieta to really stick it to his old club. Because, you know, the Cubs really should have signed him. They didn't make him a priority. They let him walk and go to the Phillies, which was an enormous mistake. And then signing guys like you, Darvish? Seriously?
In hindsight, it probably wasn't the best of moves, but we're only a season and change into it. Let's give it 2 full seasons and see how it plays out. Darvish has progressively looked better and better in his starts this year, and then in his last start, he had 11 strikeouts, 0 walks. Right now, Cubs are in the bottom of the 3rd, and so far, Darvish has got a 1-hitter going. Not bad.
Okay, he's got a 1-hitter going. This is all regular season stuff. Remember what Darvish does in the postseason?
Oh,
he goes from you, Darvish, to you, garbage.
He was awful. Like, when he was with the Dodgers, yes. That was awful. That was no good.
And I wouldn't be comfortable. Look at the money they paid this guy. I mean, never mind the amounts, but it was an ungodly amount of money. They paid this guy who has proven to be a choke artist in the postseason. Is that the guy that you want starting Game 2 or Game 3 of the World Series for you?
I'm not sure if he would, to be honest, with the rotation that the Cubs have right now. You have John Lester, outside of his last start, pitching otherworldly. I think he's got the lowest ERA in the National League. Then you've got Quintana. He's doing very well as a solid number 2 or 3.
And you know, hold on a sec. Hold that thought, because a lot of Cub fans were complaining about Quintana, right, when they picked him up. But let's face it, this guy is good, and that was really a good pickup for the Cubs from your crosstown rivals. But I think the ace on that team is Kyle Hendricks moving forward. Let's face it, Johnny Lester's getting a little bit older. Hendricks is the guy that they need to build around, and I don't think Darvish is going to be around either.
No, I don't think so. I mean, depending on how this year goes, they've got him locked in for a while. But we'll just have to see what happens with him, man. Hopefully he gets his control under control and does well. You like that?
Right. He gets his control under control, but then again, look, he may do that in the regular season. Look, I'm a fan of everybody that plays against the Cubs. So for me, I would be fine with him doing good in the regular season just to see him fall on his face in the postseason, because that's what we know of you, Darvish. Anyway, folks, we're out of time here at the Circus. Until next time, and for Kevo, I'm your Ringmaster Sal, and we'll see you tomorrow right here on your favorite station. So long, everyone. Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this commercial right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935, or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
It's time for Age of Being 2020 with Barbara Matthews, a show about successful aging, helpful services, and simplifying the complicated with practical solutions. And now, here's your host, Barbara Matthews.
Welcome to Age of Being 2020, a program dedicated to solving the challenges of senior care and aging. I'm Barbara Matthews, your host and author of the book, Old Age, The Paradox of Physical Decline and Spiritual Greatness. You can learn more about me at iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, and KCAAradio.com's webpage for Barbara Matthews. Right here on NBC News Radio Network, each week we'll introduce a helpful service, explain practical options, and simplify the complicated, all to help you and your family find good care, affordable care, to put your children's minds at peace knowing you are okay, and to help you live your best life. You can call me at 951-428-4099. Well, senior care is confusing. I mean, what is the difference between a nursing home, assisted living, and a board and care? Is there a difference between a home health nurse and a caregiver? And how do you know what you need? Does the doctor tell you? Well, grab a piece of paper and a pencil, draw a long horizontal line across the page, mark 11 vertical lines across your line continuum, each one about an inch apart, and number each one of those vertical lines 1 through 11. Tonight, I'm going to explain the long-term care continuum. That's what it's called, the long-term care continuum of services and support. So when we talk about services in future weeks, you'll have a much better understanding of whether you need the care or someone you know needs the care. Well, while you're looking for a piece of paper, let me tell you about a special guest right here on Age of Being 2020 on June the 3rd. Jean Guarino of RAL Residential Assisted Living Academy will be here. Jean is the nation's leading expert on turning residential homes into senior board and care homes. He is a realtor, a financial planner, and he has created a school to train people just like you on how to pay for and profit from residential senior care. Let me give you 3 examples. Well, first, if you've been looking at residential care facilities in California, you know the average cost is about $4,500 a month. Some seniors are partnering with their adult children to turn the family home into a residential care home, also called a board and care, adding bedrooms and bathrooms, upgrading, renovating. If the family home is in a good geographical location and parents don't mind sharing the house with roommates, this arrangement creates a strong income flow from rentals, and when the parents pass, they leave a legacy of income-generating real estate. Second example of who might be interested in hearing Jean Guarino is the young baby boomer who has already worked through the financial challenges of taking care of their parents and they're exploring options for their own futures. Many of them are considering Golden Girls scenarios, 3 or 4 women sharing a home and expenses. As they grow older, they're going to need more care and caregivers, so groups of women are exploring turning a home into a board and care. And finally, a third group of people who might be interested in tuning in are real estate investors who are interested in learning more about this arrangement. So join me Monday, June the 3rd, for Jean Guarino to hear if turning your home into a board and care is an option for you and your family. Right here on Age of Being 2020, KCAA Radio, the NBC News Radio Network. Okay, hopefully by now you've got paper, you've drawn a long horizontal line, your continuum, you've put 11 marks, vertical marks across your line, each one about an inch apart, and you've titled your drawing The Long-Term Care Continuum of Support and Services. Really a long name. It's quite often referred to by the acronym LTC for long-term care. But this is going to give you an overview of all the different providers and services that are thrown into this entire offering called senior care so that you can better understand who does what. Okay, this name refers to, as I mentioned, all the providers of health care, but also different kinds of social services, even the residential care places that help seniors and disabled persons who have chronic health conditions or disabilities which interfere with independent living. Well, what do I mean by chronic conditions? I mean health conditions that don't improve, like crippling arthritis, or you've had a stroke or Alzheimer's disease. Interfering with independent living means that you can't live alone. So, for example, your arthritis is getting so bad, it's too painful to stand and cook a meal, or it's too painful to stand and clean the house. Virtually all of us will receive services from at least one of these providers during our lifetimes. And the U.S. Center for Medicare and Medicaid says that about 1/3 of us will need care in a nursing home, which is one of the providers in that group. So anything to do with long-term care helps us with personal activities of living that we can't do ourselves. Things like eating, dressing, bathing, toileting, moving around, like getting out of bed, getting in and out of a chair, getting in and out of a shower, in and out of a car. All of these kinds of activities of daily living are referred to oftentimes as ADLs. So if you hear a nurse or someone talk about ADLs, these are the kinds of things they're talking about. Those are really fundamental things, movements that you need to be able to do every day to live by yourself. You might also hear the term IADLs. These are instrumental activities of daily living. Now, these are things like housework, paying the bills, cooking your meals and cleaning up afterward, remembering to take your medication, going to the grocery store, shopping, taking care of pets, and using the phone. If you can't physically do these things or can't remember to do them, then you need long-term care. So, on your paper, from right to left at each one of your 11 marks, I want you to write the name of the provider that I'm going to give you. And I'll repeat this several times, so if you miss one, don't worry about it. You'll catch me the next time I mention it. To the far left of your paper, number 1, is Independent Senior Living Community. Number 2 is just staying in your family home where you live. Number 3 is moving in with your children. Number 4, non-medical in-home care. Number 5, home health care. Number 6, assisted living. Number 7, skilled nursing facility. Number 8, a memory care facility. Number 9, an adult daycare center. Number 10, a continuing care retirement community, or you might just want to write CCRC, Continuing Care Retirement Community. And finally, number 11 is hospice. So on your paper on the far left side, those first providers that I mentioned offer minimal care. But as you move to the right across the paper, those providers help with more care, more assistance, more supervision. Now, in the United States, there is no organized, coordinated, or systematic process, or even a timeline for moving across this continuum. Seniors' families make the decision to enter the continuum or exit the continuum at any point. There's not as much guidance as there are, or as there is in other countries, on accessing services and care. So in this country, everyone is pretty much left to figure it out for themselves and to decide what services they need. So you can get in and you can get out at any continuum on the point. For example, you might fall, break an arm, go to the hospital, then go to a skilled nursing facility for rehab for a while, and then go back home. Although you've never participated with any of those providers to the left of a skilled nursing facility, that's the point you enter, and then you're back out and back in your own home. Medicare does not pay for residential care. Medicare will pay for only one of two of these on the list, and I'll note that when we get to it. But for now, let's talk about each one. So go back to the left to independent senior living community. Actually, I want you to look at the first three as a group. The first one was what's called an independent senior living community. Number 2 was just staying in your own home. Number 3 was living with your adult children. This is really the first step where a family will decide, maybe mom or dad needs a little bit more care. That yard's getting way too large and too difficult for her to clean the leaves and mow the lawn and handle all by herself. So I want to talk about the first 3 of these as a group. The first one, for example, is if you do look around and that big family home's getting to be too big and too empty since your children are grown and gone, and maybe your husband is just not feeling well enough to cut that huge yard or work on that roof or keep up with all the repairs of an aging house. So you decide that two of you would rather move into an independent senior community. Now, this is just like being in your own home. You are completely independent. Nobody's checking on you. And there are 3 major examples of this kind of lifestyle. The first is the over 55 senior community. We see many of them around us here in Southern California. There's usually a sign that says you have to be over the age of 55 to live there. But, if one spouse is younger than that, it's okay. They'll still let you move in. There are lots of activities of golf course, tennis courts, speakers, weight rooms, steam rooms, showers, lots of activities, lots of events, lots of socializing. The second would be an independent senior living community that's typically in an apartment. You no longer have a huge house and yard to take care of. You're in an apartment or a condominium style building, which is basically less to take care of, but you're still very much independent and in charge of your own life. The third is a low-income housing. You might have heard it referred to as HUD. And typically there are not a lot of services there either, but that's the first step. And we'll talk about this some more when we come back. I'm going to break away for a few minutes, and then we'll be back shortly.
You've been listening to The Age of Being 2020 with Barbara Matthews. We'll return right after this. Do you know an older adult who seems to have no purpose in life? Children are grown and gone, health problems limit a social life, driving has become difficult, loneliness and boredom are not unusual for older adults. One of the best gifts you can give them, or give yourself to help them, is a book titled Old Age, The Paradox of Physical Decline and Spiritual Greatness. It explains that although one's physical body is declining in old age, one's spirit is growing stronger, wiser, greater. There's new purpose and new meaning in aging. Go to Amazon.com. Look for the book titled Old Age, The Paradox of Physical Decline and Spiritual Greatness by elder care advocate and author Barbara Matthews, and order it today. That's Barbara Matthews' Old Age, The Paradox of Physical Decline and Spiritual Greatness. Need a speaker for a church group, women's group, senior group? A speaker with an uplifting message about aging? A speaker with 20 years experience in senior and health care who reveals what you need to know to protect yourself as you grow older. She's the author of the book titled Old Age, The Paradox of Physical Decline and Spiritual Greatness. Author and speaker Barbara Matthews exposes the shortcomings of our present-day system of caring for older adults and offers a better model filled with purpose and meaning. Barbara Matthews is available for presentations from half an hour to all-day events. For more information, email ageofbeing@gmail.com. That's ageofbeing@gmail.com. You can also find her book, Old Age, The Paradox of Physical Decline and Spiritual Greatness at Amazon.com. Now, more of The Age of Being 2020 with Barbara Matthews.
Welcome back to Age of Being 2020, the program dedicated to solving the challenges of senior care and aging. For more information, call 951-428-4099. I'm Barbara Matthews, and today we're talking about the long-term care continuum. We're talking about how 90% of older adults really want to stay in their own home. It's called aging in place. Sometimes you might see an acronym NORC referring to a naturally occurring retirement community. And this is what most of your parents are living in. It's the neighborhood that they bought into 30, 40 years ago. They bought a house, they paid it off. Everyone knew everyone else on the street. It was a strong neighborhood. Some of those neighbors are still in place. So there's a strong social support system. Neighbors checking on neighbors and helping when something needs to be done. That's truly an ideal and one of the most affordable ways to move into your old age. Quite often, there'll be what I like to call command central in one room of your house, typically in front of the television set, a comfy recliner, and you're surrounded by your favorite books, your TV remote control, your tissues, the pet leash, a snack, any other things to minimize getting out of that chair and just being comfortable for the day. So living in your own home is an option, or moving into that senior condominium community, or even the over 55 senior tract. Another option would be living with your adult children or relatives. And that may, you think, be absolutely the least expensive option, but it can be very costly in terms of relationships. You know, when our children grow up and they've established their own homes and their own routines and their own opinions about how children should be raised, it can be really problematic to have grandma or grandpa move in who have different ideas about those things. Living with your children can work, but you really need a thorough, honest discussion about issues before you know that's going to work. So, for example, what are the family lifestyles? Are the kids there right after school? Are people gone? Does the family eat together in the home, or does everyone eat separately? Do guests come quite often for meals? Would a grandparent be invited to that meal? When the family goes out to Walt Disney World or to a movie, is the grandparent welcome along? All of these things need to be explored. And we need to give the grandparents some responsibilities. Otherwise, they begin to feel like they're a burden living with us. Maybe they can chop the vegetables or the fruit that we're serving for dinner. They can feed the pet during the day. Perhaps they can help tutor a lesson for the grandchildren. They can run an errand if they're still driving. So these decisions need to be talked about frankly and actually written into an agreement. So months or years down the road, there's not a misunderstanding of who's doing what and how the household is going to run. The next item on your list is number 4, and that's non-medical in-home care. This works with any of the previous 3 scenarios that I mentioned. If a senior needs a little bit of care, no matter where they live, there's not family or neighbor or anyone else to help them, then you can hire a non-medical caregiving agency to do things like cook a dinner, cook several meals in advance and store them, give you a ride to the grocery store or go grocery store shopping for you, run errands, these kinds of activities. Sometimes they can even help with more personal things like bathing and toileting, shampooing your hair as well. But typically, these caregivers are not nurses, and they are not going to be able to do nursing activities. They can remind you to take your medicine, but they cannot put a pill in your mouth. They cannot give you a diabetic insulin injection. They cannot put drops in your eyes. So that's the main difference, but they're a wonderful resource to help you stay as independent as possible. The nurses are the next group. That's number 5, home health care. And typically, we only have experience with the nurses of home health care if we've been to the hospital, we've come home, and we're not quite 100%. So a medical doctor writes an order for us to, for the nurse to provide some kind of medical oversight for you. Number 6 is assisted living, and you've heard us talk about that before. That's when you really can no longer stay even with your own children or in a home by yourself with just a little bit of care. And the 2 major reasons that older adults have to move into assisted living is that they are no longer able to get their meals or they can no longer remember to take their medications. Number 7 is the skilled nursing facility. If you need the nursing oversight 24 hours a day, if you can no longer stand and bear your own body weight, or if you can no longer feed yourself, you need a skilled nursing facility. A memory care facility, which is number 8, is very similar to both assisted living and skilled nursing, but it's specifically for people with dementia, confusion, or memory loss. Adult daycare is number 9, and that is a wonderful program of socialization and recreation for people with dementia. Sometimes, if you're taking care of somebody with dementia, it's so emotionally difficult that being able to take your loved one out for activities with his own peers in a protected environment is a terrific option. Number 10 is continuing care retirement community. Here in the United States, that is the gold option for senior care. It's typically a bit more expensive, but it's typically a campus environment with multiple buildings on it with multiple levels of care. So, for example, you have independent living where you move in, still very independent, active social life, doing what you want to do. To move in, you will typically pay from $300,000 to $400,000 a year, plus a monthly amount. Then, as your health begins to fail, you might move into the assisted living part of the campus, and then eventually into skilled nursing. And finally is hospice, end-of-life care. It is a fabulous philosophy of care for someone at the end of the life, because you have a team of caregivers, including medical doctors, nurses, social workers, volunteers, spiritual counselors, and therapists who come to your home to take care of you. Hospice is so good, people actually get better. And some people go off of hospice, they graduate from hospice because now they're improving. But you can always go back on hospice if you need to. That was a really quick overview of the long-term care continuum, and in future weeks we'll be talking about that a little more. I want to share with you that this week I'm in Rancho Mirage out in the Coachella Valley for the annual meeting of the Statewide Association of Home Healthcare Agencies. Those are those nurses who come into your home. Also the in-home caregivers and hospices. This is the California Association of Healthcare Services at Home, or CASA. I'm speaking tomorrow morning about my book, Old Age, The Paradox of Physical Decline and Spiritual Greatness. I have developed a new model of spiritual care for hospice, and I'm looking forward to talking about it at the conference. In the coming weeks, I'm going to be telling you more about spiritual care and how important it is as a part of senior care. So thanks for listening to Age of Being 2020 today. I hope this picture of long-term care that you've drawn helps you better understand the options for senior care, gives you a little bit of context and understanding of the flow and the increasing levels of care. For much more information on the subject, go to Amazon.com and check out my book, Old Age, The Paradox of Physical Decline and Spiritual Greatness. Again, you can find me on iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, and my webpage at KCAAradio.com. Finally, you can phone me at 951-428-4099. Join me next week for Age of Being 2020, helping you live your best life. You're listening to KCAA Radio, simulcast in both AM and FM on the NBC News Radio Network.
You've been listening to The Age of Being 2020 with Barbara Matthews on KCAA. Join us each week as we explore successful aging, helpful services, and simplifying the complicated with practical solutions each week at this time right here on NBC Radio, KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, K292 FQ Riverside, and K293 CF Moreno Valley.
Talk 102.3 FM Riverside. KCAA NBC Radio News.com.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Tornadoes and other severe weather are threatening areas in and around Oklahoma City. Tornado warnings are in place for the Perry and Watonga areas. The National Weather Service says there have been 2 tornadoes forming around the Mulhall and Orlando areas. People are being warned to take shelter immediately. The White House is telling former White House counsel Don McGahn not to testify before the